So I was 5 hours on the back singing. But anyway, tomorrow was the most
Okay, good morning, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. It is Monday, March 24th, 2025. We have a special meeting this morning as we're not going to have our normal Tuesday morning meeting. We have moved it to this morning. It is 9:04. Please let the record reflect that we have 4 commissioners present. We have Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Cutie. And we will go ahead and get started with Dr. Singh. I see she's online.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I am here to seek your approval for some interlocal agreements. The first one is a renewal of our interlocal agreement with Boundary County. This is a coroner county in Idaho, one of our longstanding coroner counties. They send us about 5 cases a year or thereabouts. And our agreement with them has expired. So we are just seeking to renew this agreement with them. And then next is our interlocal agreement with Eastern Washington University. This is for the purpose of our college internship. We have been trying to set up these agreements with area colleges and universities, and then as needed with out of area colleges and universities. So we've had Eastern Washington was one of the first ones that we set up, but at the time that it was set up to expire every 3 years. So everything has been going smoothly. We're just seeking to renew that contract. And then the third one is with Spokane Community College. This is one that I'm pretty excited about. We've been waiting for a student from the community college so that we can get an agreement set up with them. And we're hoping to welcome our first student from there this spring. So the new interlocal agreement would be with Spokane Community College, again, for the college internship.
Any questions for Dr.? No, I think it's great. I think it's exciting to see all the interest that the colleges are having and that you're having to, again, entice, young students to be coming into the profession.
Right, just we got to get them in here. So
I was thinking inspire.
Well,
either's
good.
Yes, inspire, entice. I don't know. It's not.
Inspire. That's right. It's inspire. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Dr. Singh, what would be the from a student from the community colleges, what would they be studying? Do you think that they'd be interested in working with you?
So many of them are in a forensic track or they are interested in being forensic pathologists. Some of them are just interested in biology, maybe forensics. So this is really a way for them to explore that interest, and hopefully what they see here would inspire them then to consider this as a career field. I think, what the medical schools have a saying, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And this is basically, we're trying just to open the door to showing students that this is a career option. And even if they're not thinking about pathology, they might be interested in being autopsy assistants or medical legal death investigators, or maybe crime scene analysts or some other area of forensics. But this is a way, and there aren't very many ways for them to gain exposure to the field. So this is just another kind of window into what the opportunities might be.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think these are on next week's agenda. No, 2 weeks. We don't.
Whatever they put them on there.
I think we don't. No, we meet next week,
Right.
not the following. So hopefully they'll be on next Tuesday's agenda for us for our consent agenda then.
Great. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next we have Mike Burgess.
Don't think he can make it today. They're doing the budget releases.
Okay, Jeff and Morris.
I don't know the exact timing of them, and that's actually my assumption. I know they're doing budget releases today, and I know he said Friday he wasn't going to be able to make it. So I sent around an email to all of you, kind of the preview of what to expect in at least the funding side of the budgets, kind of the give and take of different perspectives. But the majority party is looking at about 16 million, sorry, billion with a B, in tax fee revenue to close the budget gap. The biggest chunks, it's a wealth tax on those with over 50 million in assets, and it's $10 per thousand in value. They're also looking at keeping a payroll tax above the Social Security limit, you know, high earners who don't pay Social Security, whatever that amount is. There would be a 5% payroll tax that would be on organizations with more than 7 million in annual payroll. So it does exempt small businesses. They're looking at an increase to the property tax limit, the 1% limit, to include population growth. In addition to property tax, there'll be a formula, 1% plus population growth, repealing some tax exemptions. Neither party in their press releases actually highlight which ones those are, so I don't know. They're framed differently, obviously, by different parties, but there's about 20 or so current tax exemptions that would go away. Then that's paired with a sales tax cut, the state portion of 6.5 down to 6%. So it would be a half a point, 0.5 reduction on the sales tax. And that does net out to about a 16 billion expected new revenue. Any questions on that? These will know more by the end of the day. You can find your favorite pundit to get talking points.
Is that, will the House and Senate have different budgets, like House Democrats and Senate Democrats?
Usually,
So the list that you read, is that one
that
particular
was the
house?
Senate. That was a Senate press release. I think the House didn't speak one way or the other to it. I would assume there's been some conversations across chambers, but that is an assumption on my part. To go public with something that big, you would think party leadership would have come together. And that's an assumption on my part. On the GSI call on Friday, so Jim Hendricks, their lobbyist, he spoke a fair amount about the state transportation budget, where we are expecting some, maybe not project cuts, but some push outs as far as how long projects take, particularly along what they call the 3 big mega projects, one of which is our North Corridor, the other 2 being the Highway 18 interchange from Snoqualmie at I-90, that goes down towards Federal Way, or even further south if you choose. That project, they've actually reduced the scope already. I guess they're just going to go to the top of the summit now at Tiger. Those who know Highway 18, the backside has been cut off the current plan, so to speak. And then the Columbia River crossing Vancouver towards Portland, it's the other, not even really started. They've never found a way to fund. And then I don't know if they're still fighting over light rail on the bridge or not. I haven't followed that one closely, but historically that was a big fight, whether it's going to be autos only or it would include some light rail. So there was a feeling on the North Corridor project that there could be some additional out years for the funding. That was all hallway gossip from the GSI lobbyists, so there's not a proposal being pointed to. But you, the lobbyists, have a pretty good ear to the ground on those sorts of things. So that was kind of the big takeaway. The other was, I believe he said the bill that would allow the 1% cap on property tax to go to 3% is still alive. And at this point, it is actually, no, that's a different one. So that one's still alive. There's also one to move the 3/10 that we can use for public safety to councilmatic, not having to be a vote of the people. So those are some other tax issue things on the table.
Is the going from 1% to 3% property tax, is that the similar bill that's been run for many years? Where it's a councilmatic, it just allows you to go up to that amount.
Yes, so the amounts are the same, but it
'Cause
allows
I mean,
you.
there's been, yeah, because Wasatch's like watched that for a while, okay.
And it's one of those, I don't remember the exact timeline, but you have a certain, 2, 3, 4 months that counties can enact it before cities can.
Okay.
So counties have a first mover advantage of 90 days, give or take maybe. And then after that, cities can do it. And then the formula appeared to be the same to me on a quick read. Where, if we do it as 60-40, if they do it as 85-15. And then if they take it, we can't take it there. The piece I don't know is how, like in today's paper with the Valley looking at putting it to the voters. I don't know how something in process right now might impact, because that vote wouldn't happen before this passed. If it's deemed, immediate, I don't know how the timeline of that would work. If there was a will for a county to do it, if the county could do it before a city's vote happened, if it's already on the ballot.
But that's in the public safety one.
That's all around the 3 that we have one, we already have one, we have the 2 that went out to the voters that failed.
Right, because it's just the two different things on the, it's the property tax going from a 1% to a 3%. That,
That's another piece too, yeah, so you have.
right, which is a separate bill than
Correct.
the public safety bill that would allow it to just be councilmatic,
You
basically.
have the third one, that's the 1% plus inflation, or no, sorry, population.
See, the reporting I thought I saw, it was the 3% plus the population. I didn't know there was a 1%.
The one that I
I
read,
wasn't familiar with that one.
the 1% plus population is how the Senate Democrat budget chair, Ways and Means chair, had it in their press release. So that's where I took that from. I did
Okay.
not go to the bill itself. So those are the and of course, everything on Friday was press releases. And in the world of politics, we've had 2 months of normal people's time over the weekend for things to change. Legislative days are long days. So who knows what will actually be in the bills as dropped today. Mike Burgess said he would either get us summaries or find some nonpartisan summaries or some pros and cons or whatever, left and right, however you want to frame it. Both sides and forward, people can find. So by end of day today, we're gonna have quite a bit of legislative news on the front. And everything that I said might be old news, because it becomes a long time in legislative budgets. I don't have any updates on our other list that has become a lot shorter, because the GSI call was heavy budget. Ron, you were on it, weren't you? Was there anything else? Note?
Just the ones, the public safety stuff, bills that stood out to me.
It was very heavy on the budget, this particular phone call. Which makes sense. So are there any things you want us to be looking out for, watching, or just kind of wait for the news conferences and send them in the post we got?
Yeah, at this point. Yeah. And I assume they'll each have their I assume what mentioned Burgess couldn't be here because he was looking at the roll. That's a press conference where they're rolling that out. I assume they'll be
That's what I
fielding
assumed
questions
things
and
are
actually answering some detailed questions about it. So tune to TVW, for everyone that's not watching this, click over to the TVW.
Probably would be the channel that would watch a lot.
What time is that?
I did not gather that info. I will look that up and send it around the email.
What was that?
I'll try to find the press conference times and send it around. Wanna watch it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it'll be on all the news channels tonight, and maybe the paper will have a quick article posted, I'm sure. So,
Depends on if something happens at the federal level, Jeff.
Exactly. Once another agency is gone and that might.
You never know.
It looks like the Senate budget rollout is at 10 o'clock.
Anything else to watch for?
No, I think it's like, at this point now, it's wait and see what really starts to.
We'll do our best to send around info that. What's up in a concise way as it's available.
Just a clarification, is this their entire draft budget? So it include proposed cuts as well as revenue, do you know? Or is it just
Is it the
revenue?
full?
Should be.
Okay, they're so heavy talking about the revenue, I don't know for sure, but my guess is it would be both. And that's not a lot of cuts because they're proposing enough revenue to cover everything. Based on. Yeah.
Yeah.
16 million over 4 year. Sorry.
16 million.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's a rounding error, this way came.
Yes. Any other questions?
Good.
Thank you for the update. I'm gonna take us to Mr. Michio. Nice to see you, Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Amacio for the record. Thank you, Ron, for putting that overhead on. If I could ask the board very briefly to look at the overhead that Ron has put on the agenda. The matter we're dealing with today has to do with the Beacon Hill tax increment financing area. The Beacon Hill tax increment financing area is identified on the map and on the overhead in green. And you'll see that the green area includes a hatched area and an area that is not hatched. The hatched area is referred to as the Beacon Hill sub-area. The remainder of the area to the left on the map, which is not hatched, but within the boundaries, is simply called the Beacon Hill area. As everyone is aware, the Board of County Commissioners in 2013 formed the Beacon Hill TIF. It's a tax increment financing area, and it consists of approximately 423 acres. As the board is aware, the purpose of a TIF is to provide a funding mechanism to assist developers in putting in public improvements. And the public improvements that are put in will spur further development in the area, which will generate property tax to the city and the county. So the county and the city jointly formed the Beacon Hill TIF in 2013. In 2023, the county commissioners executed what is known as a reimbursement agreement. And under the reimbursement agreement, 3 developers who put in public improvements in the hatched area were allowed to request the county to reimburse them once there's sufficient resources in the TIF account. At the time we executed the reimbursement agreement, it was proposed to be signed by 1 developer. But ultimately, it was signed by 3 developers. The issue now is all the developers want access to the TIF revenues are generated. And under the reimbursement agreement, the first developer who signs a purchase and sale agreement gets paid first. And then another developer who signs the second reimbursement agreement gets paid second. The 3 developers on this project are all working together on it. And so they said to Mr. Macio, Mr. Macio, will you please amend the reimbursement agreement so that instead of having 3 developers that have access to it, we're going to all get together and form a new LLC. So there's only 1 developer that has access to the monies, and then that developer will allocate the proceeds from among the 3 who are forming the one new LLC. So what I have in front of you, board members, is a document called a novation agreement. And under the novation agreement, the present three developers who signed the reimbursement agreement will go away. And we'll have one new developer, which will take the place of the three developers under the novation agreement. And the new developer has been all agreed to by the three present developers. So it simplifies the reimbursement process. From a legal perspective, legal counsel is recommending that the board sign the novation agreement. And if the board doesn't have any questions and you're in agreement, Madam Chair, I would ask that this matter be placed on next Tuesday's legislative consent agenda. Does the board have any questions that I can answer with regard to this matter?
I guess, so there's no revenue that's really in there at this point in time.
Right now, Madam Chair, you asked a good question. I think, Scott, correct me, I think $140,000 has been collected as TIF revenue within the boundaries. Out of that $140,000, the amount that's available to developers is probably between $30,000 and $40,000, Madam Chair. The remainder of it is available to the city of Spokane for the area which is within the boundaries of the TIF, which is not hatched. So the city of Spokane has that resource which they can use for reimbursement of public improvements they're putting in. The reason why the developers would like to move forward on this, Madam Chair, is under the reimbursement agreement, the county has agreed in working with the treasurer to disperse monies within the TIF account twice a year at the end of May and at the end of November. So let's say we had $40,000 that was available to the new developer. At the end of May, assuming the board signs a purchase and sale agreement for these public improvements, the treasurer then would reimburse the developer the $40,000 in this account toward the cost of those improvements. So I hope I've answered your question, Madam Chair. This is a really complicated TIF, but board members, we structured the reimbursement agreement for the Beacon Hill TIF similar to what the city of Spokane did on the Kendall Yard. So we've got a good template to use and in moving forward. And I think we've worked very closely with Mr. Simmons and the treasurer's office so they completely understand.
And it's your recommendation.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yeah, this is, it's a complex instrument as Jim referred to, but the way that it's been structured is actually beneficial to the county as well as to the developers, because you had the who's on first, who gets it first. There's a fairness and equity of a reimbursement, and the developers were asking the county to manage equitable apportionment. We said, we don't want to be in the middle of that stuff. So they came up with the idea, the developer did too. Well, why don't we all three go together and form this new entity? And then the county can be responsible for only reimbursing one entity as there's monies in the TIF. And then this new entity will be responsible for allocating them however they feel is most fair. So it is a recommendation. I think it's a lot cleaner for the county to do it this way.
As CEO Simmons indicated, this TIF, and I know the board, I'm going to say this one more time, is different than other TIFs. In other TIFs like the Liberty Lake TIF, when a developer comes in to get reimbursed for a public improvement, we have a lot of money in the TIF budget, so he gets paid 100% when he or she comes in. In this particular TIF, we have agreed that, you know what, we'll sign a purchase and sale agreement, and as money comes into the TIF, we'll reimburse you twice a year up to the agreed upon cost for the public improvement. And so we've agreed to reimburse them through the term of the TIF. And this is a 30-year TIF, so it runs until December 31st, 2043. So it's a little different template than we've had before, but I think it's one that the developers prefer because they don't have to wait until there's enough money in the fund to get reimbursed. Any further questions of board members? Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it'll be on the agenda for next Tuesday for formal action, and the developers will have signed it before we've signed it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. George.
Well, good morning, commissioners.
Good morning. I'll let you state your guests for the record.
Yeah, so I have with me today Terry Cooper. I'm not gonna say her political capacity because she's here representing the Long-Term Recovery Group. And we have Molly Sanchez from Inovia Foundation here with us. And today we're coming before you to present a pretty neat opportunity to be able to help out the folks impacted by the wildfires up in Elk and the Medical Lake areas. So I had an opportunity to meet with Commissioner Kearns and Commissioner French in advance to get an idea of some of the, to share with them the proposal and the thought. Just to recap, the Gray Road fire was in the Medical Lake area. District 5, Commissioner French, burned over 10,000 acres and 240 primary structures. This all occurred on August 18th of 2023. And then up north, the Oregon Road fire up in the Elk area in Commissioner Kearns district burned 10,800 acres and approximately 126 primary structures. So, so from this, the Long-Term Recovery Group established themselves and started working with partners in the communities to be able to find ways to get folks back into homes as quickly as possible. One of their partnerships was with the Salvation Army, who was out meeting with these folks that were impacted by the fires. And they were able to identify eight households that were in need of. These were folks that didn't have insurance, had some income restrictions, etc. So they were able to identify 6 households in the Elk area and then 2 households in the Medical Lake area to build new homes for these individuals. Humble homes that were able to get folks back on their property, living in a safe environment. The Long-Term Recovery Group has identified this as their home build phase 1. They've got great plans and prospects down the road. This was their first shot at building homes in response to the fires, and have done a phenomenal job. Cost to build each home approximately $120,000. That's come through great partnerships with Ziggy's building materials, as well as volunteer work that they've been able to receive through Christian Public Services or Servants, and then the Mennonite Disaster Services. They've got these 8 homes currently under construction, but they've run into a little bit of a budget shortfall. I learned about this budget shortfall a week and a half ago, something like that. At the Long-Term Recovery Group's board meeting, where they were talking about, they had the contractor that's been helping out with the volunteers. And the contractor was talking about, we've got shortages on some drywall, paint, trim, a variety of other things. And so that got me thinking, gosh, is there an opportunity for us to be able to help out? We know that we've got the HUD CDBG disaster recovery funds that will be coming. They're just not here and available yet. And so recognizing that we build into our budgets some capacity in the event that there's some significant need within the community that we can respond to quickly rather than waiting for a grant cycle. And so that got me thinking about this, thinking about the folks that have been through so much and an opportunity potentially to be able to help out the Long-Term Recovery Group, and most importantly, these 8 households. So I was able to meet with the commissioners, Commissioner Kearns and French, to discuss this proposal. Following that, Ron, if we could go to the next slide. I was able to have a meeting with Molly at Inovia to say, Molly, would Inovia be interested in a partnership to help make sure that the Long-Term Recovery Group can get across the finish line as quickly as possible? And graciously, Inovia was willing to do that. And so we are entering into a partnership of a 1-to-1 ratio where Inovia will offer $40,000 to finish the construction. And then Spokane County, through the Housing and Community Development Department, will offer another $40,000. The funds that we've identified come from the sales and use tax revenue that's specifically set aside for the creation and development of affordable housing. So what we're proposing here aligns very nicely with our RCW. Yeah, and I'll turn some time over to Molly to speak on behalf of Innovia here.
Yeah, so as the Community Foundation for Eastern Washington and North Idaho, we're really fortunate to be able to work with donors who want to support, give back to their neighbors, support communities. So in the immediate aftermath of the fires, there were many corporate donors and individual donors who stepped up and donated to Wildfire Long-Term Recovery Fund. And so the purpose of those dollars really is to fill in gaps and be able to help leverage other giving opportunities, because we all know it's in long-term recovery. It's not something that's going to be taken care of in the first 3 months or 6 months. And a lot of times when the immediate impact of the fires and the interest in donating has kind of waned a little bit, to have those dollars available to engage in opportunities exactly like this is really one of the things that we're really happy to have the opportunity to do. So we're really grateful for this opportunity. And I've had the as well the opportunity to work with the long-term recovery group and see the amazing work that they're doing on a shoestring budget and stretching donated dollars absolutely as far as they can go, and still doing really quality work and being responsive to the community. So again, we couldn't be just more happy to be a partner in this work. We asked to join with it.
The next.
Here, could bring chance to.
Sure. As executive director of the long-term recovery group, so we stood that up. Spokane County did not have a long-term recovery group. Why are they important? Well, if you get a FEMA award, that's the first thing they ask. So where's your long-term recovery group? This is the national model for proven quality recovery. And so you can recover faster when you have community partners. Other nonprofits in the community, they're your trust, they trust, the community trusts those folks, and so they become the liaison. We've done incredible work. We have a team of 30 people that showed up today from all over the nation. So we met with them last night. They're out at 5 teams working in all 6 of the homes in Elk for over the next couple of weeks. We are in finished work. And so we just have not taken the foot off the gas, but we see that our funding, we have more expenses than we thought initially, but we are still within budget of what we initially thought we would come in under 120. Right now, those houses are at about 110 that we've spent, but we have those additional needs. So I gave a detailed list, went over it with the contractor and the teams that have been working on that. We have a detailed list. And this morning they're like, that's a nice list, but we already have a couple other things. It's like, we're gonna be fine. So anyway, I was so grateful. We didn't come asking, but George has just incredibly engaged with us. Is at every meeting, asking questions, been highly engaged. And he reached out to me and said, I might have some ideas. He and Molly met together and they said, we think we both have some ideas. So it was just great. We were a little bit panicked thinking, okay, we think that after these next 2 weeks, we're going to have occupancy on 2 homes. And so we're moving full throttle. We have a team working full time in Medical Lake right now in those 2 homes. And then we have Mennonite Disaster Services working in two-week cycles over each month. So they pay, these groups come in, they pay all of their own housing, all of their own expenses, all of the labor is free. They bring in skilled labor. So everything that we can keep under that long-term recovery and use these, government and nonprofit dollars, in unison together. And then we have the volunteer labor. We just get about 20 to 30x on the dollar. And so we're pretty proud. We have a couple other pictures. You'll see some of the work that's done, but I'm happy to answer any questions. They did bring, I'll leave with you a little snapshot of where we are. This was our tracking sheet of the builds. I'll leave those where you can see all the work we've done to here. And so we're asking for some help with this. And then I do have a detailed sheet. George has this also, but these are actuals of supplies that we need, and I'm happy to leave that with you for your reference.
The next slide shows the combined commitment between Innovia and Spokane County. So to Terry just mentioned, the request there was $64,539. We're proposing to award $80,000. That is greater than the requested amount. I've worked on a lot of projects in my career and rarely have the budgets lined out exactly as expected. So I feel like a $15,000 contingency is a safe place to make sure that this gets complete and we're able to make that really strong investment in these communities while we're waiting for some of the other funding through Spokane County to be activated. So that is the proposal that we have before you. One thing I want to note is these photos, these are not taken off of Google or anything. These are photos that Terry sent to me. And she was very proud of this one. If you notice the attire of the folks that are in this picture, this is some of the Mennonite folks that are out there working and really putting their missionary focus into work in our own community. And I just think that's really neat and special.
This one particular photo was fun. This is an Amish team out of Montana that came. They partnered up with the Mennonite group that we had here. They framed 6 houses in 5 days. It was incredible. So we had a team that had been here for about 4 months, and these young guys from all over the nation had done all of the dirt work, all of the foundations. And we broke ground on July 8th. And so here we are at 8 months. We have 8 buildings standing ready in finish right now, installing cabinets and flooring. So we're very proud of the work the teams have done. But I love this photo because these Amish guys, they don't drive. We had to get the tool trailers, drive them around, and hardworking. I wish I would have taken a video of it all because it was fun to watch. But yeah, so I do like this picture a lot.
The next pictures that you'll see, I think this one shows the supplies being stored. So this was part of the agreement that the long-term recovery group had with Ziggy's to buy bulk. And you can imagine something as simple as a 10% construction loss. After you stamp that 8 times, that 10% can grow significantly. So when you see all the work and effort that has gone into this with the long-term recovery group, and for them to be at a budget deficit of $64,000, I think that's really remarkable, and speaks to the quality of the work that they're doing in helping these communities out. And I think that many folks will be off budget by $64,000 on their nice kitchen. So to be able to build 8 houses with that, I think it's really great. And I've been in 2 of the homes. Terry and I went and toured when I was up in Deer Park, and they're great homes. They're modest homes, and perfect for those folks in recovery. Next slide, Ron. And this is showing some of the work out on these sites. Yeah, and I think that might be the last slide. Oh, there's one more as they're starting to finish up. So yeah, just really excited to have the opportunity and the ability and how we've budgeted at the county and in our department to be able to come in and help out and provide some assistance, and really grateful for certainly Commissioner French and Commissioner Kearns, their awareness of the folks in their districts, and looking for this opportunity to help out. So with that, any questions?
I've already talked to George about it. I think it's fantastic, and thank you to Inovia for stepping up as well. It's great. George found the funds, which thank you for that. It's awesome.
Very appreciative. Thank you so much. Very exciting. So. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see this on next week's agenda.
Hopefully I've got to get a contract fully drafted first. So that's the hope. If not, then you all are off following week. So it'll be the 1st or the 15th. And then when we do, you do see it on your legislative, Terry has talked with some of the folks, you may have some testimonies from folks in the community at that meeting as well.
Okay, so we take public testimony items that are not on the agenda. Items on the agenda is written testimony.
Which written testimony for things on the agenda.
Yeah. So
Great,
if
thank you.
it's not on next week's legislative agenda, you could come and speak to it in advance of it.
Okay.
Or tomorrow.
And can I,
Or tomorrow.
oh, tomorrow they could also,
They can speak at 2:00. Saying
all right,
that you know this is.
because it's advance of it and yeah, that's fine, okay. I'll just leave these here, those are those copies and use them if you, as you see fit. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Let's we choose to take it separately. And I'll have you think about that as to what. That's space. Took it separately, so. Just have them come in advance.
One of each. Yeah. Chair always has the prerogative to allow anyone to come to the microphone. Speak if.
I do, yeah.
Probably just taking them separately.
Probably have this, Josh.
Let's talk about it. Terry. Out of the ordinary. Okay, so Scott Chesney.
Fine.
Okay, there we go. Morning, Scott.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. We have 3 items coming to you for consideration from the Steering Committee of Elected Officials. Those of you that sit on the committee have seen these and seen the process. Next slide, please. They are relating to countywide planning policies for housing, which, as you recall, the board, the steering committee and the board updated the countywide planning policies in a significant way in 2022, leaving out housing because the legislature was taking action to change that. Notably, you can see the highlight here, House Bill 1220. That has now come to fore, and the PTAC and steering committee have made recommendations on housing for countywide planning policies. You can kind of see the dates here. Next slide, please. There are some findings that are in here. This is Chapter 7 of the countywide planning policies, and it's additional guidance for implementation, and then regional strategies for housing affordability. And then the PTAC focused on adapting that state legislation to housing policy. Next, please. Then basic recommendations, identification of local policies, regulations that get at disparate impacts. This was a direct impact from the House bill itself. And then the idea of areas of displacement from market forces. This is a challenge, and you have also seen the briefing of what we call the HAPT tool. That is the implementation part of this recommendation. Next, please. And then finally, one specific allocation policy is recommended for addition in terms of growth targets by economic segments, avoiding concentrations of low income, increasing opportunity and capacity for affordable housing near services where it's needed, and then specifically calling out the various products themselves, triplexes, fourplexes, and so on. That is a direct reflection of House Bill 2020. The more detailed documents were in your packet. The steering committee has acted on this. They have recommended approval by the Board of County Commissioners. We have this on for your receiving of the steering committee recommendations on tomorrow's legislative agenda, and a consideration on that a week from tomorrow. And with that, I'll pause for a minute, see if there are any questions about the housing side of what we're doing.
So I have one question, Scott, as we
Sure.
look at like item 1C, saying support additional housing types and all of that. In my area, we've got a lot of 10 acres that
Mhm.
you want to have like a mother-in-law unit, which is kind of that, ADU. Are we going to be allowing for that?
Well, the policy is simply saying support. It's not requiring any jurisdiction to do that other than the cities who are required by House Bill 1220. Currently, county code does allow for attached and detached ADUs in those rural areas. There was a bill last legislative session, again this session, to prohibit detached ADUs. And that bill, I understand, has died in committee. So there's, at the moment, there's still the allowance for Spokane County to have both an attached or a detached ADU on a rural parcel. So for the moment, we can still do that. There are some other bills that are looking at boundary line adjustments and what are called unit lot subdivisions that might allow for that ADU to be sold at some point. If, for example, if a family were to live in, the parents move to the ADU, the children take the main house and continue to either work the land for ag or whatever reason, but decide to sell, that would allow the ADU to be sold separately and not have to go with the property. So there are some other things happening aside from this. But from the policy perspective, it's simply saying it's a supporting mechanism, not a required one.
Thank you.
If nothing further, we'll go on. Ron, next slide, please. The second countywide planning policy is totally new from 2022. And this is on climate and resiliency, again, from the legislature, notably House Bill 1181, a fairly significant piece of legislation that we are working through PTAC and also affecting our comprehensive plan and everyone else's. Next, please. And these, I guess what we're simply calling the summary for a new chapter. The goals are, in many cases, taken right from the RCW or right from 1181. So they are not necessarily something the PTAC or the steering committee came up with that is new. So the net zero emissions by 2050 is part of that, part of the law itself. Mitigate and climate hazards. This goes right with what George was talking about before this, trying to plan ahead for resiliency for fires and natural disasters. And what we're doing with climate and resiliency is working it into, as we've called it, placemaking. So that as we're planning for these new growth areas in urban growth areas, we're building ideally neighborhoods or the beginnings of neighborhoods, not just simple subdivisions. And that has some resiliency built into it. It could be separations of units. It could be how the landscapes are planned, how the open spaces are planned. So we're making this a fairly benign but market-oriented tool rather than trying to come at it from a fairly heavy-handed regulatory perspective. And for example, one other thing, if we're able to build these neighborhoods where there is a small chance of provision of services, whereas you could pick up some basic provisions without having to drive another 2 or 3 or 4 miles to a bigger grocery store and come back. That has the added benefit of a greenhouse gas reduction without having to call that out as a regulatory scheme. So we're trying to characterize this in a more constructive, growth-oriented fashion. And happy to take any questions on the climate and resiliency policies. And you will certainly see more of this as we brief you on the comp plan as that becomes more of the planning and implementation part of it. Nothing else? We can jump on to, I'm sorry?
Just a second.
Oh,
Commissioner Walder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just gonna comment that the steering committee had a subcommittee that worked on the affordable housing planning policy language. I think we went through about 4 different drafts and iterations. So there was a lot of discussion about trying to make it as reflective, right? Mr. Chesney, like trying to make it appropriate for the whole county, but also trying to honor small cities versus large cities, And there was a lot of discussion, and so I feel like the affordable housing policies kind of, they went through a lot of dialogue and discussion, so I'm feeling good about where they ended up. I don't think Mayor Cooper's still here, but she and I were on the subcommittee together, so. Anyway, and then the climate policies were fairly, there weren't, you know, it's not very lengthy, so it didn't take us as long to go through those this last week and send them forward. But we had a lot of good community input too in the whole process. Every steering committee meeting's had a lot of public comment and engagement from a lot of different stakeholders groups, so.
And to add on to Commissioner Waldron, for the comp plan update itself, has been created a technical advisory committee specifically for climate and resiliency. So those conversations are continuing and helping to guide what will be planning goals and policies that you'll see later on in the comp plan update.
So steering committees acted on both of these to recommend they move forward. Is that right, Scott?
That's correct. The letter of transmission with that is in your packet.
So we'll be voting to accept or receive the recommendation, set a public hearing, and then
Considering them
Okay.
Next Tuesday. Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, shall we move on? Next slide, please. The last is related. It is the amending the interlocal agreement that creates the steering committee and causes the countywide planning policies to be formed. This is also based on recent legislative activity to involve more broadly our tribal participants. The two tribes, Spokane Tribe, Kalispell Tribe of Indians, have historically participated in the PTAC, at least informally, for a number of years, and have certainly in my time with Spokane County. This is an interlocal agreement, though, that changes the steering committee itself to provide a voting membership seat for each tribe. That has, again, gone through the steering committee, a subcommittee. Next slide, please. And you can see these are some of the changes that were made to simply add those provisions to the interlocal agreement. Next slide, please. And these would be the amended language. You'll note in Section 7 in the general provisions, an element was added to reflect the tribal sovereignty, and that the interlocal agreement does allow for their participation, but the tribes do not participate in the GMA specifically, and this is a reflection of that sovereignty. This one is also before you for consideration next week. If the board does in fact adopt this, that will also then go around to all of the subsequent cities, towns, and tribes for additional signatures to finally execute or fully execute the interlocal agreement amendment. And with that, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time, and I will see you again next time.
Appreciate it.
Bye now.
And that's gonna take us to Mike Sparkworth.
Ready? Okay.
Good morning, board, and I have Justin Johnson with me this morning. We're here to talk about selecting a provider for the Crisis and Stabilization Center. We did go out for an RFP, went through an interview process. And through the interview process, we selected Pioneer as a preferred provider for the Crisis Relief and Sobering Center. So obviously it has the benefits because they already operate our stabilization center and it makes for a good transition across the board. With your approval to move forward with Pioneer, we're going to enter into the contracting phase and work on the contract. Question. Brought the expert.
That's right.
He's right here.
Right. No, I think it's exciting that Pioneer wanted to respond to the RFP and then you chose them through the process. I think with them already being there, it just makes so much more sense having, you know, gone to Whatcom County when we went over there, Commissioner Jordan and I were there. And seeing where you had two different providers within the same facility. It just makes it more difficult. I think as we were asking questions, it was like one could answer, another one could answer, but it wasn't as seamless. So I think Pioneer has done here for us has really been a great benefit, and I think they're doing a really good job. So.
Well, thank you for that, Madam Chair. Also, they'll be helping us with the design phase on the interior, so they're going to work with our team to help do that part to the validation phase. So it's going to be a great asset to us.
Had a lot of lessons learned from the SRSC, and that was implemented as we did the review process for the CRSC. And then once that is fully integrated, as we look towards the future, we'll also be presenting the board request probably to have a name for the entirety of that facility. Because CRSC, TRSC kind of gets confusing. Yeah. So I will be contemplating that, but a recovery center or a name of like a regional recovery center does sound easier for the public to remember and certainly easier for all of us to refer to in our documents. But that's something that, as we looked at working with Pioneer and the project as a whole, really made this an easier process for in terms of integration.
What's the length of the contract that we would be looking at?
So we didn't contemplate, I mean, it's it has a renewal at the end of
Yeah.
it, right? So the first, go ahead.
I think it's on an annual
First
cycle.
1 year. Yeah.
So they've got two parts of the contract. It'll be the design and build. They'll be working with us to help do that portion. That's a separate and distinct expectation and role. And the second portion of that contract will be for the actual service delivery. That won't occur until currently 2027. And so as we look towards bringing them on, what you'll see right now is just the contract with the service support and expertise. And because of lessons learned, we actually have that capped to a performance. So there's certain things that are built out during that period they have to complete to get the payment. It's one thing we learned as part of the process that we wanted to have milestones to be. So I do expect that they will also come back for the board in 2027, well, 2026 for that period, the contract with the service, and the board will have a better idea that what that service delivery will look like as we work out the different pieces.
Yep.
Do you concur?
Yep.
Again, I think you guys are doing it right on this in Spokane County. So I have to commend you because as we know, there's stabilization centers that have opened on the west side that don't have a provider for them. So they've got this great new building and no provider because of how the entities over there are handling the reimbursements and all of that for it. So I just commend both of you, especially Justin, I guess you for getting those contracts in place with the MCOs and making it happen. So funding is there. So we have providers that are willing to be here and to do that. And I think the other thing I say is that, you know, kind of doing what we're doing with STARS and working with them, I think gives us a heads up too, as to what opportunities and what the layout can look like for the 23-hour center. So I think, again, we're just in such a prime position to make sure it's done and done well. So thank you guys for all that you're doing.
I just want to second that. When I was over in Olympia with Commissioner Waldron lobbying and talking to legislators in the governor's office about the requests that we have for funding to support the construction, there was a lot of questions. Oh, are you going to have a provider? There just seemed to be a common theme of concern. And of course, we didn't have this process done. So we said what we could say though is we've had great success with the Crisis Stabilization Center. Not too worried about it. So this is a great outcome. Was able to tour it recently again with some of the folks who went over to Whatcom County, and it's just really impressive what they do there. Seems to be, I don't know what the full picture is in terms of staffing, but certainly a busy hive of people. They've got a lot of peer counselor type folks with lived experience. Had great data that they presented to the group in terms of the outcome. So this is a great thing to be moving forward with Pioneer.
Justin and I were over there Thursday and had a pretty large census. There was a lot of folks there.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're really hoping that this transition, when we do this building, with what we currently have, there'll be plenty of data to demonstrate what the benefits and what the push for building in certain areas are needed. We're finding as transitions within the facility and STARS are absolutely critical to ensure reduction of recidivism. That's what we're going to be incorporating. So already we've got data to help us guide on this process. So not a lot of other facilities have that. We're incorporating that part of it.
And then,
Yes.
and then a secondary note is that there's gonna be some lot left, and we're planning for the future, and already Justin and I are kind of brainstorming some projects, so hopefully it'll be a complex of wellness and mental health offerings, so.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to see the build out of the Crisis Stabilization and Sobering Complex, the CSSC, when it's all built out. Or a campus, CSSC. It still works either
We
way.
gotta work on that.
There's your acronym right there.
Brainstorming session.
On a side note, Justin's been a blessing to work with. We're a good team, so.
I just wanted to, yeah, I'm excited. So can I ask two things? One, does Pioneer operate any of these 23-hour sobering? Do they operate any other facility currently in Washington State?
The 23-hour crisis relief, there's only one that's currently open that meets that standard. That's the Connections. So they don't, Connections does, but they're in the areas where those are working and coordinating. So Pioneer is aware and they've been actively following. But they also run stabilization centers that are similar in that.
Right. I mean, that's kind of what they're doing with some of the beds currently. So the second question is, so when people have been asking me about this project and what is the county investing in, when, why, explaining like the need for sobering beds and then how that's connected to treatment and further recovery services. Am I correct in saying when we build this sobering center building that anyone can enter that facility voluntarily? It's not just law enforcement or like the current way that you enter the current crisis stabilization center is by referral only by law enforcement, EMS.
So currently they do, SRC does take referrals from community providers.
Right, but it's referral only, I guess.
And they've done an occasional, they've tried to do the walk-in. The goal for that is to have a front-facing component with the community. So
For this next facility.
correct.
Okay.
That's the missing, except for, there's one key aspect of that. Will not take youth. Youth have a totally different
Right.
criteria. And
Right.
during a census is not conducive to our current design build.
And so then if somebody is successful in that sobering center and then they're medically able to enter treatment, can they enter treatment in the stabilization center?
In fact, that's the benefit of this center is with it being
I'm just trying to
attached.
understand that pathway with the law enforcement referral.
Yes. So conceptually, this is how Justin looks at it.
Okay.
And this is
Tell me, Justin.
you're my great friend. Right now, law enforcement does drop off. What we want to build is some sort of connection to the two where there's a shared receiving center that would have a pull through, either law enforcement, first responders, or the community. There will also be a walk-in section. So community members can walk in, be received, receive a evaluation, and then go in there. Once they're in there, they can also be referred into the long-term inpatient stabilization, hotel management, or co-occurring residential. The law enforcement drop off, they can either go directly into the SRSC or stabilize and then come in. We're seeing is when they go to a 23-hour or a hospital where they need to withdraw, and then they're referred over, they're not transported directly over, they're referred. Go over here, take this cab, and we lose them. But they can't be lost if they're in the same facility where they're walked over. And they're highly encouraged to stay. So there's going to be peers and other providers there saying, hey, this is actually beneficial. Maybe you should stay for this amount of days. So we've reduced the time that you would have involvement in the community from 24 hours to up to 12 days. And again, that's conceptually based on what the needs are. That means an individual would not be in the same environment where they could be receiving the negative influences that they would previously. And also does reduction in areas where when individuals are consistently using substances and or involved in a situation which is not conducive to their health and well-being, they're stuck with choices, and there's limited ones when they're on the street. This provides other options.
So have you been talking with STARS about their Car 50 that does do transportation to different? Is that something that could be built upon, like another transportation opportunity?
Well, and I think that's a benefit to what we're building out here in a cohesive system from the county. As I work with SRHD, with STARS, with all of our network providers, we have an obligation, and we impose it on our contracts too, that they work together and that we work in tandem in terms of meeting the needs. So if one can provide it better, refer it over. If one doesn't have space, refer it over. So yes, that would be the
But having
expectation.
transportation, so folks are directly brought to the next facility is
Correct.
important.
And whether that's Car 50 or not, we're still working on that. Since that's funded by the city, we do have to work with them to kind of discuss what that would look like. But conceptually, if we are doing this with Pioneer or STARS, there should be some coordination, including transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Next steps.
maybe next time we'll have pictures.
Yeah.
Rendering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tony.
Just
Yeah, I'll let you move up to the head of the table there.
Good to see you.
You too. I was told I have 30 minutes, but I told them I only had about 10 minutes worth of materials.
That's perfect. Perfect.
I'm here to brief you on 2 subcontracts under the umbrella of the Safer Outcomes Grant through the COPS office that the sheriff's office was able to obtain the sheriff, I think approximately $320,000. The first subcontract is with the Institute of Individual and Organizational Change. They're going to help us deliver the motivational interviewing training this year for a handful of our deputies and leadership staff. The idea behind that is to do an opportunity with a researcher, which is the second subcontractor, which I'll talk about here shortly. But the IFIOC will be bringing this class in, which they've done for Spokane PD and other agencies in the state of Washington. The idea is to give our deputies more tools for de-escalation. Through the research, if it seems that it's going to be changing that behavior with our deputies, our goal is to go after COP for another opportunity to get our whole organization treated like that. The second that first subcontract is in a total of $60,000 from January 1 to December 31st. And then the second subcontract is for Parks Research LLC. She's going to be the one who's going to be leading the research for both of the courses. The second one I haven't been able, I think I did actually talk to you about this, the first course. If I haven't, forgive me. That one's for the Tactical Social Interaction course, which is a research-based course through DARPA. So her whole goal is to take both of these courses and help us pull the data together to show, did it change behavior or not? So that's the big umbrella over the whole overarching subcontracts. So the second subcontract is for $86,000. Questions? Hopefully I gave enough information there for you.
What was the funding source again?
Community policing, COPS office.
Is that a state or federal? Federal.
I'm feeling comfortable that we're gonna get the federal grant.
I'm sorry.
Are we feeling comfortable that we're gonna get the federal grant?
Yeah, it's there. Yeah, the grant's already been there. We have the funding. We have Contracts. They've already been signed. The second grant,
Probably helps.
which we'll talk about later, the second grant is about 940,000. That's been put on hold slightly for the, I'm assuming, personnel in DC. So.
Questions for Tim?
So just to clarify, so the research piece will be to analyze whether the training changed the behavior of our deputies who received it.
That's correct.
Field, okay, what might that look like?
Right now, it's
It's for that expert to really
yes,
figure out, I'm just
yes.
curious.
We have some, by me working in DARPA and her working in other similar projects, the idea is to get pre and post behavior change. So the simple way to put it is they're going to come in and do a couple of tests, both performance and written tests, go through the training, and they do written performance tests. And then hopefully we can line this with our body worn camera AI project for research to show long-term behavior change. We'll be the first one in the country that can really demonstrate that behavior change is occurring through this type of training using these different softwares and technologies.
That's kind of what I was curious if that would tie in.
That's our goal, is to show that tie-in, absolutely. And if not, if we only can get the first level, what we call level 3, the behavior change versus organizational, community may see the change based on our responses. And we can go after COP for more funding for, say, I'm hoping 2026. If we can do that, we'd like to go after our whole organization. Because one of the efforts we now know that if we don't train the whole organization, it's obviously common sense. Some research will tell you that it's more dangerous to train a quarter of the organization versus the whole organization. So if it does show change, that's
What would be, who would be the target group for the initial round of training?
our goal is to get as many of our field training officers and our leaders to train, so that way they can coach others.
Can you tell us a little bit about the organizations you're contracting with, the Institute for Individual and Organizational Change? I see they're based out of Cheney.
Yes.
And I see the Parks, what's the other one called?
The Parks LLC.
Parks Research LLC, I know is also local here. Can you tell us about the two organizations?
Casey Jackson is the founder of the first one you mentioned.
Okay.
He's been teaching for years, the motivational interviewing, great success at that. I've had a few, when I say I personally know him, I know him based on his profession and the great work that he's been doing out there and the word that we've been receiving, especially from Spokane PD. The second one, Parks, she's a new researcher coming through the great grapevine of researching in human behavior, performance behavior. She worked with Pasco for say 2 to 3 years with their body worn cameras research. She was also a research assistant at Wazoo for body worn cameras, and with human behavior and human performance. So
are these sort of one-man shops, each of the
No.
organizations then, or?
Parks is,
Oh, okay,
but Casey Jackson has a full staff.
okay,
They travel all over the world teaching.
okay.
We just needed somebody outside of our organization, because obviously that researcher would have been a part-time or full-time staff. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Sorry about being here late. I do apologize. Actually, it's the other location. If anybody saw me. It's like-
We don't have you queued up till 10:30, so you're ahead of time. You're good.
I got the call when I was in the sheriff's office. He goes, "There's someplace," I told him, "Oh my gosh. Get out of here."
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Have a great one.
You too.
Take care. Yep.
Okay, that's the end of our printed items, so miscellaneous items, I know. There's a proclamation that I'd like to put forward on the National Crime Victims. Larry Haskell called and talked to me, so if we're good with that. And I didn't, Pat raised his hand before, I'm sorry, Pat, I didn't get to you. So I don't know if there's any other proclamations.
Next week is we had already put the public health one on, public health week.
Right, because that's that first week of April.
Right, so we're doing it the week before, yeah.
Are we doing it on the first?
Yes.
It is
'cause-
next week,
And it's,
correct.
but the actual public health week starts the 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it. I mean, do it before the.
Instead of the
actually
week after,
starts.
oh,
Right.
wait, last week was public health week.
No.
It happens.
National Crime Victims.
We're ahead of the game this year.
Yeah, and we'll probably do National Crime Victims next week as well. Do it on the, well, which is first, right? Because we've got, that's the 6th to 12th, so it's the week we're off. So, okay.
I was just gonna ask if we have the authority to proclaim Major League Baseball opening day a national holiday, but I'll just talk to legal about that before I bring it forward.
That's right. Which is Friday?
This week,
Is it Friday?
Thursday.
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 Probably Thursday night game.
Better get the date figured out before we get the proclamation coming.
Yeah,
I think it's Thursday.
it's interesting because it's early. Usually it's the right first week of April. So
Baseball in March.
I know.
Saw the weather in Seattle, so it start.
Yeah.
Start early.
Yeah. Pat,
Not very many home runs in that. It's gonna be
Good morning. The other proclamation that came through, we don't have a sponsor yet, but I just wanted to mention it. If anyone would like to claim it, I believe Commissioner French has brought it forward in the past, or Commissioner Kearns. It's the Giving Joy Day for Eastern Washington University.
already.
They've asked for it to be proclaimed April 3rd, so we would also need to run that one next week.
we will have a busy week next week. So.
Commissioner French wanted to do it.
Is it the Eastern day of? Is that what that was? Eastern Washington.
Gina told me already gave
Yeah.
out the list, which is fine. It's fine.
Okay,
Siri can read it, or, or I'll read, whatever. It's a good one. We've done it in the
Let's
past.
do
It's a
it.
good cause.
Sure.
Go for it.
Go Eads.
Yeah.
Go Eads.
what, I mean, when Justin's gone, I don't know when the mental health, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Do you know when the mental health month is?
Yes, I believe Mental Health Month is in May, and so we'll run that resolution. We're probably going to have a couple of busy resolution days where we may have 2 or 3, just because of the board. I think the board is off the first week of May, so we'll probably need to run that one the last meeting of April, along with 2 others.
Okay, correct.
Data corrections officer, he was also in May.
Okay, so that's.
Week or is that a month?
It's a week.
Is that a week? Okay.
Okay, so yeah, let's just kind of get those scheduled out so we can get those taken care of.
One more miscellaneous item. I'm asking that the board designate someone to sign the agreement with the Spokane Arena for the joint board meeting with city council. So we're getting the complimentary room and for 5 hours, but there may be some staffing costs and AV equipment. It's on April 18th. And so either we need to route the document for every board member to sign, or the board can decide to designate the chair to sign.
So I didn't know we had a day. That's great.
Yeah, the 18th.
That it's working.
April 18th.
So it's just the contract with the arena.
Contract with the arena. Yep.
I'm fine.
To use the room.
I'm fine if the chair would like to sign that contract.
Same here.
I'm fine, so I get you 3 head nods.
It's very appreciated. Thank you.
Do we have a time for that?
I think it's
10:30 to
9
12:30.
Oh, I thought it was 9:30.
Contract says 10:30 to 12:30, so if it is
Okay.
9:30 to 11:30, we'll just get that changed.
Maybe it's changed since I.
Right now it's on, yeah, it's holding your calendar from 10:30 to 12:30.
Okay, I know Betsy and I talked about limiting it to 2 hours. Okay. Just to keep people on time, and we still have not figured out.
Yeah, 12 people that are gonna want, or potentially 13 people that are gonna wanna get some face time. Yeah, 2 hours seems like plenty.
Can we limit the electeds to 3 minutes each?
Like Congress, you get 5 minutes to speak and then your
Play
time
the
is
music.
done. Unless someone else, cedes you, that their time, yields their time to.
Is Ron gonna be playing the music when you're speaking time and just your time?
Just yours, okay.
Yeah, I figured. I need to cut my mic.
2 executive
I
sessions.
was gonna say, it looks.
Yeah,
like
I've got more.
executive session.
They're both, pending and potential litigation. Like the board, CEO, myself, Wes Sickow for the first one, and Jeff McMorris if he's available. No action. 5 minutes each. They're gonna be so fast.
Really nice. Hey, Matt, holding you to it.
Otherwise, play the music.
So the first one and then the second one.
They're both pending and potential litigation.
Right, but who's-
Same group, but not Wes for the second one.
Okay,
The board, CEO, myself, Jeff. McMorris.
so we've got other people that have
George Dahl, Bruce O'Kinney, and Heather Arnold.
And George Dahl, Chris McKinney, and Heather Armstrong.
I'm like, there's a lot more people
forget
that are in this room.
And are they for the?
Let's do that for the first one.
one?
Let's do that for the first one. So the first one will have Wes and George and Heather and Chris,
Yes.
correct? Along with CEO, yourself, and the commissioners,
Yes,
and Jeff McMorris.
if he's vigilant.
Is he gonna come if he's available?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the second one will just have the commissioners, yourself, Scott, and Jeff.
Yes,
Just making sure.
very clear.
For the record,
Nailed it.
we're clear on it. Okay, so we're gonna go into executive session, no action.
No action.
For approximately 10 minutes on these two items, no action will be taken. So at the end of that executive session, we'll be adjourning for the morning and see everybody back for tomorrow or 2 o'clock legislative agenda. Justin.
Over.